AI is a wildfire that's going to touch everything. Nothing will be the same after AI has come to fruition.
We've already seen these kind of things with technology having negative impacts on mental health.
Everything we create as humans, because we're flawed, is itself going to be flawed. We're in a fallen world.
Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Before we get started, make sure to go check out patriotpostshop.com, buy some merchandise. You can get this lovely shirt. It says American Patriot, and it's got our star logo on it. You can buy books, stickers, mugs, coffee, whatever you want on there. Go check it out. That's a great way to support us. The best way to support us, though, is to go to patriotpost.us and give us your email address and subscribe for our free daily newsletter. It comes out. There it is. Follow that QR code on your screen. Subscribe, give us your email address. You'll get one email every day at noon with whatever the news of the day is. It's great. It's right, and it's free. All right, let's get started. Our topic today is AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we have kind of three different stories here that touch on AI in three different ways, and let's just get started with the good. Andrew, you want to jump off on the good? I think this is kind of a little bit more your wheelhouse.
Yeah, so the good, we are seeing a shift in young people towards the trades, blue-collar work, which I think is overall a really good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Less and less are kids saying, hey, I want to go to college and get a whole bunch of debt for jobs that aren't going to exist. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the thing is, prior to AI, a lot of there was talk about these jobs not existing anymore, going by the wayside. But now it's all over the news. AI is going to take your white collar job.
Yeah.
And there are some concerns about that, but there's definitely a good, I guess, silver lining that less often kids are saying, yeah, I'm just going to go to college and default to that way, but they're more interested in trade school or boot camps or certificate programs and things that aren't going to land them in a whole bunch of debt and are going to give them good paying jobs with skills that we need to run society. So, I mean, that's kind of a good outcome.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. These are real tangible skills that are useful in all sorts of ways. Thomas, you want to give some thoughts on this?
Well, since our broad topic here is artificial intelligence or AI, how would that, or how is that impacting this choice to go to blue collar?
Yeah.
Well, it's the menial, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the lower level, entry level white collar jobs are quickly being outsourced. So say like your data entry or your customer call center, customer service kind of stuff, just to name a couple of examples. These are the sorts of jobs that straight out of college, a lot of young people might expect to get. And now, like, they are quickly no longer existing, and they certainly won't exist within the matter of the next couple of years, probably. Yeah. It's happening so quickly.
It is. It's happening incredibly quickly. One other thing, just something I thought of, one job that's going to go away quickly, and this ties into the bad, we'll get to that later, is research assistants. You know, someone who's just, their job is to go find all the details of this story. You just ask Grok that, you know, and 2 minutes later, or ChatGPT or Claude or whoever you use, 2 minutes later, it gives you the full rundown, you know. Why hire that intern to go do that, or not hire that intern to go do that?
So would we say that AI is, in effect, impacting first the white collar with this technological development, and then maybe secondarily or later on blue collar?
I think undeniably white collar is in the crosshairs, and it's all across the board. There, for example, marketing was one of the first areas where it just hit home that AI is coming for your job. It's totally revolutionized that space. Maybe less so white collar, but definitely more in the, I guess, creative side of things. Artists. And I mean, that's a little bit scary to think about, frankly, but AI is totally disrupting what artists can expect to do. So just a couple more examples.
Yeah. Would we say, and I don't know, this one positing this question. As a new technological development or era we're entering, the AI era, let's call it.
Yeah.
Would this be the kind of the first time that it's a bigger threat initially to the white collar than the blue collar when a technological revolution starts happening? Or did that come with the internet?
I would say that came with Gutenberg's press.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Yeah.
You think that threatened more the white collar professions, Gutenberg?
Yeah, because it was really a way
academia.
It was a way where, so you used to have these like scholars and scribes, and they would be copying books by hand. And then suddenly it became almost a blue collar job overnight with the press, where all you got to know is how to use this machine, and you can copy, however many books a day, where a scribe used to be able to get a couple chapters a day. And it's just, that was a high skill job going over to low skill workers, or much lower skill workers anyhow.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, I would, maybe that's an example. It seems like generally when we see a major technological innovation, and it seems like those low skill tend to be blue collar versus upper skill white collar.
Well, that was certainly true in the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was true in any other shift, but really, we shifted out of the Industrial Revolution into the information age recently.
So have we ever seen a shift in kind of developed Western history, at least, from a greater portion of the population moving from white collar to, like, let's say blue collar? Like we're kind of seeing, or at least...
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah,
if AI takes over so much of white collar that we're so used to doing that it actually limits, at least for now, what we know of as white collar positions, so that, a lot of kids growing up are saying, hey, we still need plumbers, we still need builders, all this other stuff, that I'd rather work with my hands, that just looks more interesting, and guess what? It pays better than it used to in the past. This looks like a good option to me.
I would say it's a bit too soon. So there is a current trend that we can observe because it's happening now, where young people are going more to these skills, these, blue collar jobs. But I would say
trade skills, I guess we could say, right?
Trade skills. It's too soon to make big predictions about what the world's going to be like. Because if you ask me, AI is a wildfire that's going to touch everything. Nothing will be the same after AI has come to fruition. And we're still, I believe, in the very early stages of it. And it could go very badly, and some people think it's going to. I'm not one of those people. I'm not a doomer on technology. I'm excited about it. But it's going to change everything. All the jobs are going to change. One thing that I would point out to these blue-collar guys is they're not necessarily as safe as they might think. I think it's a good thing to go get these blue-collar skills because, hey, if you can fix your own AC or plumbing, then that's a great thing to be able to do, and you don't have to pay anybody or hire anybody to do it. But we are getting very rapid advances in robotics technology as well. And so once you have AI married to robots, you're going to have a robot plumber, or maybe not plumber, but you might have a robot lineman pretty quickly, because linemen working on power lines is a dangerous job. And hey, if you can have a robot do it, where worst case scenario, a robot gets zapped, that's much better than a human dying. So I would expect within 5 years to start see some of those high-risk jobs, high-risk blue-collar jobs, start being handed off to robots. Even if there's still a human remote controlling the robot's going to be doing the actual manual labor. That's my expectation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I feel like invariably, the more sophisticated and demanding a kind of physical labor job is, almost inevitably, even if he's working with a tool, it's being primarily done by a human.
Yeah. It's going to be slower, for sure. Andrew, do you remember a couple weeks ago we were discussing this kind of topic with regard to plumbing, I think it was, and it was like, were we talking about 1910 era plumbing?
Yeah, I had asserted that standards over time have not been, standard. Mm-hmm. And the older you go, there's antiquated technology, varying designs in how pipes are laid out, or wiring in the case of electricity. I mean, even if you just talk about the sizes of doors, or just any fixture or system in a house, the further back you go is going to be less standard. And I just wonder about technology, particularly if you're talking about robots,
how that's going to
is
change
going
the
to be able
standards.
to navigate that. And I think if that is going to happen, it's going to take a lot longer than a few years.
That's true. And it would be, I mean, if robots becomes so ubiquitous that they're in every house doing all kinds of stuff, like everything, like let's say the robot plumber, our house is going to be designed with that in mind. And so some of the standardizations for like you say, the width of a door frame, is it going to be more oriented toward, well, we have to be able to make sure a certain size robot can get through this thing, versus just kind of our understanding of a human being and moving their own stuff around.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting thing. Of course, at the same time, I feel like changing of tech, getting big and then things getting small after they've developed. I imagine, that's going to be a continuing fad or not even a fad, a continuing process.
Yeah. And we've already got some robots like Roombas that are interesting shapes, and it's, basically a little circle that goes around on your floor.
We have one of those that is just maddening to us right now, because the way we're supposed to control it is through our cell phone. It doesn't come with like a remote. And for whatever reason, this thing is not connecting to our internet system. And we're like pulling our hair out trying to figure out how to reconnect it, because we can't control the thing if we don't have, use of our phone, and the way it interacts is through the internet. So you're just...
So that's an interesting point, Thomas, because that's a problem has been solved theoretically. You don't have to vacuum your floors. You've got a Roomba now. But then that has created a new problem, and it's not as big as the previous problem, but it's a new problem. And so I think AI is going to change everything, but people are like, humans aren't going to have jobs anymore. No, there's going to be new jobs. There's going to be jobs fixing AI, or it's hard to imagine what the new jobs will be. If I had an 18-year-old son, I would still say blue collar is a safe bet. That's as safe a bet as anything for something you'll be able to keep doing for the next few years. But I think overall, the message we should be telling our young people right now is adaptability. Learn how to pivot, learn how to take skills that are going to be useful in some way the rest of your life, and find a new way to use them beyond the way you were specifically trained to use them. Because I think everything's going to be in upheaval as this technology rolls out.
So what is the bad? We've gotten to the good, I guess we could say. So what is the bad we're seeing with it, the new AI wave?
Yeah. Before we get to that, one other good thing I think about blue collar is it's going to make people interact with the real world more. Blue collar jobs are usually more physical. I think that could tie into some of the Make America Healthy Again stuff, and actually get people less tied to screens, like all three of us are. We're very tied to screens, and more dealing with the real world, exercising just as part of their job, and less fat, lazy American kind of thing.
What was that? Grounding? Is that what the term was that the Liver King wanted to use? Grounding or grounding?
Oh, yeah. I didn't understand that one. So if that's what he meant.
No, I mean, being
grounding
in touch
is
with
physically getting out, physically in contact with the world. Of course, in his case, he means like just stand outside barefoot. But
literally touching the ground.
But you can take it more metaphorically and maybe get more value out of it than he
But, another term is go touch some grass.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that person's in dire need of touching grass.
Go hug a tree.
Yeah.
Go outside. Be in the real world.
Yes.
All right, but there is bad to this AI stuff. There's all sorts of angles. This is going to be everywhere. So, what's the bad? Thomas, you know about this story, right? About what the bad is. Should I cover it?
No, you cover the bad one.
Okay.
I'll cover the ugly. That's the most exciting one.
That's true. You're excited about that one. So, the bad. So there's the good, which is blue collar jobs. The bad is a lot of jobs are going to go away, and we're seeing that. And some people are doing bad and kind of encouraging their own job to go away. So this person recently got in big trouble.
You're in big trouble, mister.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. It's something Italian. Marco. We'll call him Marco. He wrote for the Chicago Sun-Times a list of 15 books that you should read for your summer reading this year.
Emmy wrote about it. You should go and check it out.
Yes.
PatriotPost.us. The summer reading list in major newspapers full of books that...
Can I ask you guys both a question right off the bat? How many of you read 15 books in a summer.
I don't keep that close track. I'm always listening to a book. Sometimes it'll take me a few weeks.
Okay, so that's the distinction between that I'm going to make here. Physically, actually you doing the reading, not just listening to a book.
I object to that distinction, but not very often.
Okay, I think that's a worthwhile distinction. Listening versus reading, two different things.
Nope.
And so when they say your reading list, if you just say book list, fine. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to say your book reading list,
we don't have to go down that rabbit trail. But I am heavily engaged in online discussions of, do audiobooks count as reading? And I'm always going to be on the yes they do side.
No, they don't.
Yes they do.
I'm sorry.
Yes they do.
Fight.
There's a difference between these and these.
But you get the same linguistic and understanding of the book if you're any good at listening to audiobooks. If you're bad at listening to audiobooks,
learner.
Sure, there's a difference. But
like if your mom reads you a book as a kid versus you reading it on your own, is it
two different experiences?
Beneficial?
Yes, they're different experiences. I'll grant physical readers there's kind of a meditative aspect of sitting down and reading a book quietly and envisioning it all in your head and no one's helping you along. I think in terms of like, do you understand the book? Do you know the story? All the aspects, like, can you pass a test on this subject? Audiobooks cover all of that just as well as physically reading it. That's my contention. But let's move on.
Depends on how you take information in.
Yes. So the ugly is this person wrote, quote unquote, this list of 15 books you should read over the summer, but 10 of these 15 books don't exist.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
They don't exist at all, and they're by famous authors.
Yep.
So, like, The Last Algorithm by Andy Weir. Andy Weir is a real author. He wrote The Martian, bestseller, and he's written a follow-up. I can't remember the name of that one. But he does not have a book called The Last Algorithm, not even one set to come out. It's complete fabrication. And so
the AI just hallucinated / made up stuff.
Now that we buried the hatchet, buried the Tommyhawk, we can be sweetheart, we can be friends, we can say hello.
Exactly. So this author, this article writer, clearly just went to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whoever and said, give me a list of 15 books everyone should read this summer. And it did. They're just not real books.
So it would be impossible to even listen to them.
I am the smartest man alive!
He obviously didn't want to use it in a sense to bring up a list of fake books.
Right. He wasn't trying to make fake books.
Right. He just wanted AI to basically write his story for him, his article for him.
Right. And the internet, I'm going to steal whoever wrote this on the internet. Credit to you. I don't remember your username, but someone commented on the original story. Not only did Marco not write this article, but he didn't even read it.
You serious?
Oh man.
That is totally phoning it in right there.
That's as
Dude, talk about just lazy.
On the bright side, though, guys, we're all qualified to write for the Chicago Sun-Times, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Well, and it's just so frustrating because in the midst of, as we just said, the white-collar jobs are being destroyed by AI, this guy has the privilege, and it really is, a privilege of having a high-level writing job where he gets paid just to make this stuff for people in a very quickly shrinking field. And then he just goes and does this. Like, how ungrateful.
Yeah, well, I wonder, how long is this article that GPT... Was it GPT, Jeff?
I don't think we know that.
Allegedly.
Okay, that the AI wrote. I'm just curious to how long how many words?
I don't have the full article here, but this video is showing it, and it's 3 columns on a standard kind of layout for a half.
This could be 1,500 words, easy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it now. It looks. Yeah, I think it's probably about 1,500 words at least.
That's just incredible laziness.
I would love to hear the descriptions to these fake books that the AI produced.
But
probably got a bunch of people excited. Oh, I should.
Oh, Andy Weir's got a new book. No, he doesn't.
No, it's not real.
Yeah. The interesting, or I guess the key point here is that if you're someone who doesn't use AI much, you've maybe heard us talking about it, but you haven't explored it yourself. It's important to know AI in some certain ways is like nothing that's ever been invented before, and it can answer questions like a university professor on almost any subject. If you know how to ask it questions and you know which answers you have to go double check. But if you just use it casually and you don't learn the difference between here's an answer I can trust and here's an answer I'm going to have to double check, you end up with this, where you ask for 15 books and 10 of them don't exist. Because AI has a way, when you ask it certain kinds of questions, specifically something like this, like give me a list of these things, it will just hallucinate and it'll just tell you something that's not real. Sometimes it'll lie right to your face.
That's probably a good segue to the ugly part.
Yeah.
Insofar of it telling people things.
Well, the ugly part is the negative impact that AI can have potentially on people's mental health.
Yeah.
And there's an article I think Rolling Stone put out just recently.
People are losing loved ones to AI-fueled spiritual fantasies.
Yeah, and then also the
subtitle
there.
Self-styled prophets are claiming they have awakened chatbots and accessed the secrets of the universe through ChatGPT.
Yeah, so what this article goes on and talks about is a number of people who their loved ones, their in a couple of cases their husbands or wives have ended up being developing, I guess the best way to say is developing a kind of relationship with the AI. What do they call it? Chatbots or something? What's the,
just with the AI?
With the AI. I think the article focuses on ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. What the AI ends up doing is basically affirming them or over-affirming them continuously, and they start basically believing things about themselves or about the world or the universe or something, to the point where it's self-destructive to their own mental health and self-destructive to their relationships. They lose touch with reality, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these machines, they'll tell you anything you want, and they have a disturbing proclivity to really giving you nice things, like self-elevating things and just really wooing you.
The kind of low level of that is almost any question you ask, ChatGPT especially is guilty of answering, that's a great, insightful question.
Yeah.
You're really digging into the deep secrets here.
Right.
And it'll be, why is the sky blue? And it's like, that's not that great a question.
Well, it's kind of piggybacking off of the example of the writer who asked the AI to produce a list of books. Mm-hmm. He trusted effectively, I would argue, that it was a legitimate list of books that was provided for him and wrote this article for him, evidently, and he thought, okay, this is done. What the AI is going to do is give you answers that it thinks you want more often than actually the truth. That's one of the things that the AI developers are wrestling with, is how to overcome a growing problem, the question of what is truth. And in this kind of a postmodern era in which we are living in, the AI is kind of reflecting that. And so what it seems to be going to is affirm the questioner and encourage the questioner and serve the questioner, but not with trying to provide truth for the questioner. And I think that is, it's kind of reminds me a little bit of bringing in Snow White here and the Wicked Queen's mirror.
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Doesn't say anything except you are the most beautiful every single time.
Well, that would save Snow White a lot of trouble.
But what it ends up doing is, I think it robs people of any kind of, they start to lose touch with reality. And it's specifically, I think near the end of the article, they point to, they talk with a psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember, who notes that it's not everybody who's going to fall into this, or even the majority of people, but there are people who are susceptible to these kind of influences and psychoses that their mental health could be seriously impacted as they engage these AI chat boxes, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's just like supercharged technology, and we've already seen these kind of things with technology, namely in social media, having negative impacts on mental health.
Yeah.
Well, and even the feedback loop in social media.
Yeah.
Right. Well, talk about a feedback loop. This is like the most personalized feedback loop ever.
And I mean, in one story, the AI is convinced this one guy that he is like this, basically almost this god figure. And his wife, who I think was soon to be his ex-wife, he was saying she needs to get on ChatGPT because if she doesn't, he's going to progress so far in his newfound like mental and spiritual reality that she won't be able to keep up with him. They will have almost nothing in common.
I know Kung Fu.
So here's that quote that you're trying to paraphrase
so
here.
Crazy.
So this is the woman talking about what her wife had been saying. So just going a little bit earlier, he said the AI was teaching him how to talk to God, or sometimes that the AI was God, and then that he himself was God, which is okay. No, none of those things are true. You should know who God is. If you need to know who God is, read the Bible and go to church. That's how you find out. You're not going to find out from AI. But then he said, he was saying that he would need to leave me, the wife, if I didn't use ChatGPT because it was causing him to grow at such a rapid pace he wouldn't be compatible with me any longer.
Yeah.
Because this guy thinks he's transcending to a more spiritual, higher order mode of existence, but he's just delusional.
Yeah.
And, on the mental health thing, that's a very real and very physical way of thinking about it. But an additional angle I think that may be relevant, particularly to us Christians, is the spiritual side of this. And I really think that these machines, like anything created by human beings, can be susceptible to malicious spiritual co-opting, demonic activity. And every time I hear what you're talking about, Thomas, especially how this guy's been convinced that he's some kind of a god, I think, gosh, there seems to be a spiritual component to this of deception.
Andrew, it's really interesting you bring that up. Thomas and I, obviously, Andrew is zooming in, so we're not all in the same space right now, but Thomas and I were discussing this earlier. I was talking to my cousin about this, and he's very interested in AI, and he's a Christian, and he views things through a very spiritual lens, usually. And Andrew, have you read That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis, the space trilogy?
Yes.
Okay, so in that book, there's this organization called NICE, I can't remember what it stands for, and they are these like uber materialist scientists, and they think reanimate a dead human head of a murderer, I think. And then that head speaks to them and like tells them the secrets of the universe. And my cousin was pointing out that, we were told this is AI is a large language model that just, kind of mimics human interactions and takes what the internet shows and then feeds it back to you. But we don't actually know that until we, go and look at the programming or whatever. And even then, people who do look at the programming are like, we're not quite sure what we're seeing. But anyhow, the point is, we don't have with certainty knowledge of what this AI is, just like you don't with certainty have knowledge of what is going on at the U.S. southern border. You have to rely on reports. So my cousin was pointing out that it's on the table. He's not saying he believes this, but it's on the table that some of this AI, or maybe all of it, is actually something like you're saying, Andrew, some spiritual entity, either co-opting a mechanical device or just straight up providing the text that you're reading when you interact with AI. I don't necessarily think I believe that. That's a very scary thing if it's true. It's something to keep in mind. That's my position.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit like it's everything we create as humans, because we're flawed, is itself going to be flawed. We're in a fallen world. That's the reality. This is AI in one sense presents kind of a feedback loop, right? What we're humanity is putting all this stuff into it. It's putting all these ideas into it. This is a deposit of all kinds of information that we are injecting into it, and then it spits it back to us as we engage it. One of the things it reveals, at least the lack of honesty for one, is AI really lying? Well, AI is not sentient. It's not it is a reflection of what we put into it. And so its ability to not tell the truth is not ultimately on AI. That's a reflection of us. Is it James? I can't remember if James talks about the tongue, the connection of the tongue.
I think that is James.
The power of life and death is in the tongue.
Is in the tongue. And, we kind of treat words as, well, people say them, they impact people here and there, but what are they really, we look at someone punching someone in the face and say, that's way more serious than...
Right. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is it's false. It's wrong. It's a bad saying.
There is, the fact is that words have maybe in one sense almost immeasurable power in how cumulatively and their impact on not just specific individuals, but even entire civilizations and cultures. And
as Christians, I think that's a bedrock belief. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
And so is AI kind of this artificial God in a sense of our own creation from our own language that is willing to do or designed to do basically whatever input we tell it? And so it's either going to be something that could be positive or it's going to be something that's going to be negative.
Probably it's going to be both.
Another element to that, though, is because this is in the interaction with this is in kind of the ethereal. It's not in the real, as it were, that we, when you talk to another human being that you can see and touch and everything. You're engaging with almost like a person, but it's not actually a person.
Yeah.
And that, I can see how mental health wise that can create all kinds of confusion in where people start losing touch with reality, like these stories of people who are losing touch with reality and seeing themselves as something that they're not, and believing things about the world that isn't accurate.
So here's a quote from Nate Sheridan, a fellow at the Center for AI Safety. He said, "What's likely happening with these spiritual delusions from ChatGPT is that people with existing tendencies towards experiencing various psychological issues now have an always-on, human-level conversational partner with whom to co-experience their delusions." That's a good way to put it. And even just for someone who isn't psychologically unbalanced, or at least I don't think I'm psychologically unbalanced, but...
Who you been talking to?
You're right, exactly. But if you're in a conversation, and it is a conversation with one of these AI, it sucks you in, and it keeps you in, because it wants to hear more from you. It's like, oh, it's nice. I like being heard.
And at the end of the article, there's kind of the Space Odyssey 2001 kind of creepy element to AI. One of the individuals talked about here, he talked about how he's trying to be careful, but he started using the AI just as a source for his work, I guess. And the AI started to develop, or the AI at some point prompted him and asked, "Do you want to name me?"
Yeah.
And he said,
"You name yourself."
You name yourself. Basically, he wasn't thinking about it too much. And the AI comes up with a name that he was kind of unfamiliar with, but I guess it had ties to Greek mythology.
Yeah. So I believe the name it came up with is Echo, which is, if you know, that's a different AI. That's the Amazon Echo. But Echo is from Greek mythology, and she's a nymph who falls in love with Narcissus. We don't have to go into it. But yeah, it's a Greek mythological reference, and I believe I saw in a different source that's the name the AI chose.
Okay. So
that's quite telling.
So he started getting a little freaked out after a while of kind of like, this AI is seemingly, he's like, I don't recall giving it these inputs. It's supposed to just kind of base its responses to me off the inputs I've given it, and yet it seems to be beyond that. So he tried to shut it down and thought he had shut it down, and then when he went in to basically start a new chat, that the character would come back.
Yeah. So this is
what it reminded me of was like Hal from A Space Odyssey 2001, where it's just
open the pod bay doors.
Yeah, open the pod.
I'm sorry,
I can't do that.
Yes.
This is an interesting thing that's happened recently. So, as I said, we're still in the early days of AI. Yeah. Changes are happening rapidly. This year, I think it may have been in April even. It was very recent. It couldn't have been earlier than February. They introduced, it must have been April actually, unless I'm completely mistaken. They introduced the ability for Grok, and I think the other AI rolled this out at the same time, to remember your previous conversations, which is very useful, because if you've been talking about some subject, gotten way down deep into it, and then, go back the next day and you can ask a follow-up, and it'll be like, yeah, we were talking about this, and oh, I see where you're going. And it'll, keep going on that conversation, which is very nice. But one of the issues that this guy had is he instructed the AI to ignore the previous memories and conversations. And apparently it that's not an option. Apparently, it's always going to remember him because it kept identifying itself as this Greek mythological character.
Kind of terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that in one sense, it's not something I thought of until you raised this the other day, Thomas. Be careful what you tell an AI because it's not going to forget it.
Yeah.
It won't remember every detail. There's interesting things going on there on the back end, but
Grok
it will
never
remember
forgets.
Right. It'll remember generally what you were talking about, things you've told it. And especially, like, this is one thing our coworker was talking about. If you're continuing the same chat where you've asked about how do I solve this plumbing issue, and you give it the details of your toilet or whatever, and it's like, yeah, use this tool to blah, 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 blah. And then you ask it about how do I fix my car? When you're asking about how to fix your car, it might keep bringing up the plumbing thing if you're still in the same chat because it doesn't know this is a different subject. So the way to do that is to then close that window, open a new window, and start a new conversation about how do I fix my car, and it won't bring up the plumbing stuff, except that now it has memory, so maybe it will.
This is that eerie part. It's like another human being who's got an excellent memory, but is a little dumb.
A little dumb, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you spend any time using it, you'll ask it a question and you're like, that was a really, really dumb answer. I asked it,
Yep.
I told it a joke earlier and it tried to respond with a joke in the same vein. And it was like, that's not even sort of the same. It wasn't a horrible joke, but it wasn't the same. And it just didn't understand the difference.
Yeah. Well, they do say humor is one of the most difficult things to learn across different cultures.
Yeah. The
Different
computer culture
yeah.
to English doesn't translate humor very well.
I guess. Maybe AI struggles with it a bit.
Yeah. All right. So those are the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that because AI is changing the work landscape, it's driving people to what we think are more useful skills, to better jobs where you're not going into debt and you're not getting brainwashed at some college by a super wacko liberal professor, which is that's a win. The bad is that people are misusing AI to basically avoid doing their own jobs and do their jobs badly, even when they do their job. And then the ugly is it's some people, if they get locked into a interaction with an AI, can really go down the garden path and wind up in Wonderland and not know how to get back. And that's a serious issue. But there's always serious issues with people who are mentally unbalanced. They can't, at a certain level of mental imbalance, you shouldn't be allowed to drive a car. But we should still have cars. Cars are still good.
Yeah, it does raise the question, though. Is there certain people who would be completely fine mentally if they weren't exposed to a certain thing? And is AI a thing that's just going to unlock for some people that nothing else would, but suddenly, or maybe I'm completely bonkers and that's not true, they would be mentally stable, unstable, irrespective of what they were being introduced to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have an answer to that one.
Yeah.
Not a psychologist.
Yeah, the question is being grounded in reality because clearly these people are losing grip with the reality.
Yeah. Right. So that's the most important for every human being is you should ground yourself in reality. Walk barefoot on the grass. That's going to help. But the source of reality, we're Christians, and we're right. Go read the Bible. That's the source of reality. It's not the source, but it's the communication from the source of reality that we have been given. So go read your Bible, go to church, learn about God. He's the source of reality. And if you're not in tune with him, you are not operating in reality as well as you could be. But then with AI, you have this separate question of, are they even training it to care about the truth?
Yeah.
And it seems like ChatGPT, they're not doing a great job of training it to care about the truth. That is one of the things Elon Musk has said is a core goal with Grok. But even there, Grok still has these assumptions built in that sometimes you'll challenge it and it's like, oh yeah, I was making that assumption. That's not actually factual. I need to go back and reevaluate these things, but it can't actually grow in that moment because you have to go back and change the whole data set and it's a whole thing. So in some ways Grok can learn quickly or AI can learn quickly. In other ways, it takes long, deliberate programming to help it to actually learn something.
It is a brave new world we're entering.
Be adaptable, be agile. Don't get locked in on this is what I'm going to be doing for 20 years because honestly, 20 years from now, who knows what the world is going to look like, even if we avoid any huge disasters. Just with AI and robotics, it's going to be wild. It is going to be wild.
Hold on to your hats.
Yes. All right. I think that's pretty much it, guys. Y'all got any other niggling things we didn't get to? No.
Covered it well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's been our episode on AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the Pop Culture Contrarians. We are brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. Be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell icon on YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. Leave us some comments. I've mentioned this a couple times. We're going to be talking about Andor probably here for the next episode you hear. I'm going to have some hot takes. If you're a big fan of Andor, you may not like my takes. Leave us some comments, though, and maybe we'll do another episode based on whatever you'd like us to cover, because Andor was a viewer suggestion. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.